know what really makes us mad? Is wasting money on CDs with only one or two good songs.
Yeah. Tell them about punk.
What's up, posers, and welcome to Punk Lotto Pod. I'm your co-host, Justin Hensley.
I'm your other co-host, Dylan Hensley.
And this is the show where we choose 1 year at random and select one punk, hardcore, emo, or punk-adjacent album from that year to discuss. And the way this show's been going a lot lately, punk-adjacent is more the theme, but we'll get into that in a little bit. If you head over to patreon.com/punklotopod, that's where you get access to all of our weekly bonus audio, where last week, what did we do?
We did what we always do.
Yeah.
A News of the World and an I'm Listening double feature.
Yeah, 2 in 1. I guess we could talk about we can mention some of the stuff we talked about. We talked a little bit about Neil Young leaving Facebook because of AI chatbots talking to children. We talked about some new records, of course. That's always something that pops up in those stories. Do we have any other weird news stories? I can't really think of. We just recorded it. And whenever we record these, my brain then immediately flushes everything we just talked about, and I forget.
Yeah, go listen to it. It's there.
And then the music we listened to over the last week. And, so that's there. What else? If you sign up at our $5 producer tier, that gets your name set on the show every single week. So let's shout out our producers. So thank you to Zach in Oregon. Thank you to Jason W., writer of the newsletter Songs About Chocolate and Girls. Thank you to Dave Brown, writer of the newsletter Oklahoma Lefty. And thank you to Steve Long, host of the podcast Rebel Nerd Radio. Go give him a little love. He had some bad news this week, work related and not so work related now. So go check him out. He's got a newsletter as well. I think it's called the Otter Limits, so you can check that out too. Producers also get access to a once a month exclusive bonus EP audio that we record, and we have a poll up currently. I believe we have a winner, so I'm not even going to say it yet. I'm going to wait until we get our final vote in, but I think we have our winner. And stay tuned for that. That should be coming within the next week or two. And we have our $10 tier where you get to choose the album that we devote an entire episode to, and which we received a comment this week of, I wish I could give you $10 right now because I want you to talk about an actual punk record on the show. So I hope this scratches that itch this week, but we'll see. I wanted to do a quick shout out to Natasha O'Neill of the band Wife Patrol. They announced this week on their Instagram that Natasha has been diagnosed with breast cancer and that the band would have to cancel any upcoming dates so that, she could begin her treatment. And, I reached out, I shared the story, and then she reached out to us saying thank you and asking how we're doing. And I was like, me? How are you doing? And that just kind of shows you kind of the person that she is. We love them. They're great people and a great band. So I don't think they've got any GoFundMes or anything like that. I'm assuming we're not there yet. If they get to that point at some point, we'll share that obviously and tell you all about it. But I think they're doing well okay right now. But go listen to the records, go buy it. They have 2 great, excellent records that you should check out. So, and go listen to the episodes that they were on. Very fun episodes. Just really cool people. I like them a lot. So, Natasha, you'll get through this, and you'll be back to smashing those drums anytime now. And before we get too far, we've been receiving voicemails. We've been accumulating voicemails over the last few months because we had the intention of putting out a Q&A type episode, but then I dropped the ball and didn't really follow through with it. So we have all these voicemails that we've never played. So I decided, let's start playing these. And maybe this becomes a recurring thing. Now that we have a backlog of voicemails, maybe more people could send more voicemails and voice notes and that kind of thing. If you don't want to send a voicemail, you can even do just a voice note into your phone and email that to me. That works too. punklotopod@gmail.com. Or you can call our voicemail line 202-688-PUNK. Very easy. Leave a voicemail. Don't worry, I won't answer it. I don't answer ringing phones unless it's from my wife or my mom or work. So don't worry if you hate talking on the phone. I won't answer. You just leave your message. So, but we have a voicemail here. So I know who it's from, but I don't know what it says. So let's find out what we got here.
Hey guys, this is Brian from Wauwatosa. This is Jimmy's cousin. Calling because I hear you're doing a little kind of mailbag Q&A kind of show, so I figured I'd contribute, Oh, real fast update on on Jimmy Three Toes. So he didn't make his parole. No surprise to any of us. But he has escaped from prison. So we're all, very afraid. But, it kind of adds a spice to life, living in constant fear and, having your head on a swivel. I just tell my kids, if you see Uncle Jimmy, don't make eye contact and go in the house and call the police right away. So, like I said, it just kind of spices everything up here now. But we'll keep an eye out for him. So, I enjoy your program a lot. I listen every week, but I have to be honest with you guys is, I don't know what the heck you guys are talking about. This, that, and the other. There's, your different genres and different cores, and I don't know. All I know is albacore tuna, So that's the lane I'm in. But my ears always perk up when you guys start talking about snacks and food and things like that. So I was wondering, just kind of what are some of your favorite, junk foods, your fried foods? Because I live up in Wisconsin, and I would say about 80% of what I eat is fried. And I probably haven't eaten a vegetable that's not fried since 1997. So, of course, I'm partial to cheese curds. That's probably my favorite. I also like onion rings a lot. I don't discriminate. Could even be Burger King. You get good value with them, because you eat it and you're tasting it all dang day. So, okay, I'll let you guys go and, talk about, your different, emo this and hardcore that or, and stuff like that. So I don't really know nothing about nothing. So, okay, guys, you take care. And, if, Jimmy comes around, we'll, I don't know. We'll just keep an eye out. Okay, take care now. Bye-bye.
Well, it's good to hear from you, Brian. Very unsettling news of Jimmy's escape, and please keep us posted in case you run into him, or let us know what happens. And that's very unfortunate.
It's I wish we'd listened to this voicemail earlier. I think this voicemail came in April and is now August. And has Jimmy been caught? Brian, I think we might need a follow-up voicemail. Like, has Jimmy been caught? Did he spring all those convicts out of New Orleans earlier this summer? I don't know. Has he been around us and we just didn't know it because we actually don't know what he looks like? Oh, well, that's a lot of questions we got here. So, Brian, we would love an update. It's been a few months. Sorry about the delay on that. Fried foods. Let's see if we can pivot to this. Let's see what. Speaking of fried vegetables, I had some fried okra at Cracker Barrel last night for dinner, and my Cracker Barrel has not gone through the millennial update that that everyone's complaining about online.
Yeah, where they threw away all of those antiques.
Yeah,
they didn't sell any of that shit.
Yeah, they're still at my location, and they haven't changed the sign yet to the simplified version.
I saw someone say the new Cracker Barrel logo. They took away the cracker and the barrel.
Yeah. I don't know why they think they need to change Cracker Barrel like that, because it's like, just because you change how the inside of the restaurant looks and their logo doesn't mean that it's going to invite more people in.
Yeah, Cracker Barrel, the decor is like 90% of the reason to go. Right. It's not the food.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't want to eat Cracker Barrel food in a grayish doctor's office waiting room.
As far as other fried things, I love cheese curds. Fried cheese curds are phenomenal. There's a chain of restaurants here in North Carolina called Cookout that has white cheddar cheese bites. They are fantastic. I love those. We have a Culver's here in Hickory as well, and I've had their cheese bites. Cookouts are better, and that's saying something, because Culver's is a Midwestern chain of restaurants. So love a cheese curd. And let's see, what's another good one that fried squash is one of my absolute favorite things I've ever had. I guess that kind of fits what you're going with here. You never see it on menus anywhere, There's like a restaurant in Charlotte called Pinky's West Side Grill. They do fried squash. Phenomenal. I love it. What do you got?
Yeah, fried squash doesn't come up as much. You see a lot of people will do like fried green tomatoes, and nobody really admits that that's not a good one. But
I like fried green tomatoes. I don't like regular tomatoes, weirdly.
I think tomatoes should be ripened and eaten fresh. I don't think tomatoes need to be fried. That's not one.
You know what this tomato needs? Battered and fried.
Yeah, and picked too early, way too early. And I do love a fried squash. You're right. Nobody does that. You got to do that yourself. Honestly, kind of want to do that myself now.
I tried it in
fried
an air fryer.
prickles, you see fried okra sometimes. Yeah, I mean Cracker Barrel, but
Yeah, Cookout has fried okra too. Not at all locations though.
Yeah. LA not as heavy on the fried foods, I guess. The last like fried thing I had, I did have some pretty good fried scallops at a seafood place up in Malibu this summer. That was pretty good. You don't really have a lot of the kinds of seafood places that I'm used to out here. There's no fish camps.
Yeah.
And it's much more like all the other ways that fish are cooked that I don't like.
Or not.
I mean, I don't mind a grilled yellowtail or something like that. But yeah, the fried scallops were good. Junk food. If we're talking junk food, I just had a wisdom tooth pulled this weekend, and I have never wanted to just crunch a big handful of chips more in my life. I am screaming for. Once this is healed, I'm gonna eat a bag of chips in one sitting because I need to crunch so badly.
It's so funny. You don't realize like how much you crave just like biting and chewing things whenever you can't. Like when I had all my wisdom teeth done, I only ate like mashed potatoes, like SpaghettiOs because they're really soft, and like pudding and Jello. And by like the third day, I was just like, I want to eat I want a piece of pizza so bad.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I know this. I know that I want to eat glass already. So I don't know. There's just some things you see, you're like, I bet that's fun to chew.
Oh, no. Oh,
what's that called?
There's Pika where you like want to eat
Pika where you want to eat chalk and
and paper towel rolls.
Yeah. It's not that I want to eat things that are. I just want the texture of hard, crunchy things, which is not good because my teeth are not healthy. They can't handle that. But chips, I do love chips. And one of my coworkers asked me, he's like, "What's your go-to? Like, what's your guilty pleasure snack? Or like, if you have it in your house, it doesn't last forever?" And I'm like, I don't know. I'm pretty good about, like, I don't know, if there's Halloween candy in the house, like, I kind of overdo it or something like that, but, like, it's like, I don't feel like I have anything in general, and he was, like, kind of naming stuff, and he said chips. It's like, oh, chips. Yeah, chips. Bag of chips is not, that's 2 days. And then that's gone.
I've really been enjoying lately, Ritz has these, like, I think they're called, like, crisps or something like that. It's basically like take a Ritz cracker, except kind of fry it instead of bake it. It's like turning a Ritz cracker into a chip, but it still has the Ritz flavor and texture, but it crunches harder than a Ritz cracker does. I fucking love those things. I get those things every week now when I go to the grocery store for work. Like it's part of my lunch at work because we don't get to punch out for lunch and leave the building.
Well, we should probably dive in because we got a good bit to talk about still.
We do. Albacore tuna. Wow.
Yeah.
That's such a good line. I think I could hear him laughing at himself when he said that one too. So, albacore tuna. All right. So, yeah, let's get into the show because we do actually have quite a bit to talk about. So, it was your turn to select this week's album, and I gave you the year 2004. And as usual, we like to take a look at what's going on in the year before we dive into the album. So what is 2004 looking like?
So 2004, I realized that I was just piling way too much stuff on the notes. I was just like, there's too many things to talk about in this year. So there's whole subgenres that I'm leaving off here. I really wanted to just kind of like hit the big stuff from this year. So the 2000s in general is such a big decade for punk, and a lot of different versions of punk are very popular. I think there's a lot of major labels still putting money into punk. There's big indies that are putting a lot of money into punk bands. Everybody has good distro. I mean, you can get this stuff in Best Buy, you know. It was everywhere. You had in-cap displays with 10 new hardcore records every Friday, you know. So it was a big time period. I think a lot of it's driven by, like, there's just enough social media. Music videos still have some power. A lot of the old ways of promoting music are still working, and there are these new ways that people are finding music and being involved in underground music. So it's kind of overlapping, and it's just a really active time period. So the big stuff I really wanted to hit. Pop punk is still very big in 2004. Green Day put out American Idiot. We've got Under My Skin by Avril Lavigne. There's Sum 41 Records, Simple Plan, Good Charlotte, Reliant K, Newfound Glory. All big pop punk bands putting out records that year. Simultaneously to this, we have really one of the first huge years, I think, for like the mall emo and scene core stuff. It was kind of building in 2002-03, but I think it's gone very nearly mainstream at this point. So My Chemical Romance put out 3 Cheers for Sweet Revenge. Say Anything put out Is a Real Boy, which I believe we talked about on the show.
Yeah, was that with Petrov?
It might have been.
Sounds right.
Taking Back Sunday did Where You Want to Be, which is the one with the baby butt on the cover.
I forgot about that one. Trying to never mind it, I guess.
Yeah. There's some Used. There's the big Atreyu record, The Curse, with the girl and the vampire girl in the lingerie on the cover.
Yeah.
And also, we've got Christian Mall Screamo. Big year for Tooth and Nail and Solid State Records. We've got Me Without You's second album. We've got Under Oath's third album. It's the big one. They're Only Chasing Safety.
Yeah. I think it's their fourth. I think they had 2 before they signed with Solid State when they were a death metal band. Weird trajectory on that band's entire career.
Some ones that are big for us: He Is Legends, I Am Hollywood, Dead Poetics, New Medicines, Showbread's No Sir Nihilism Is Not Practical. Those are all records we got in 2004.
The Dead Poetic record. It's so funny to me that the lead singer in that band, he was like, yeah, we're doing this thing where we sing and scream on the record. And like while they were recording the record, they like watched a video for like Thursday or somebody like that. And they were so upset. He was so upset that someone beat them to the sing scream combo. And I'm like, in 2004? Like that's it already was a thing. Why did you think you were the first to do this?
Thrice was on Island in 2003.
Yeah. I don't know. Maybe Brandon wasn't tapped into what was actually happening at the time. He does come from the Christian music scene, so maybe.
Yeah. They were a little behind.
And they're like, fine, we'll do Deftones next.
This is the post-punk revival time period. Franz Ferdinand, Killers, Hot Fuss. There's an Interpol record. Kind of like the flip side of that coin is also like your dance punk stuff is going on. So there's the Chick 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 record that year. There's a La Tigre record that year. It's a Q and Not You record. There's a Death from Above record, which, you know, kind of straddles the line of the dance punk and the sass core sounds, which is kind of a funny little time period because that's like Blood Brothers is like the sass core band. Like that's the number one. But it's like, it's funny because so much stuff I feel like from this time period revolves around that style. There's a Black Eyes record. There's a These Arms Are Snakes record. I think even like a lot of the underground screamo post-hardcore stuff was trying to do the Blood Brothers a little bit. Or at least they had that artwork. Very ugly artwork.
Yeah.
Was very popular at that time. There's a little mathcore. Converge did their follow-up to Jane Doe. Dillinger Escape landed Miss Machine. The first Chariot record. One little category I thought was interesting was there's kind of a mainstream metalcore
Yeah, it's
scene
like
at this time.
alternative metalcore, I guess is how you would call it.
Yeah. And it's like big stuff. Like it was doing numbers. Like Lamb of God is a band that, rednecks in Hickory were into. It's like not even just the kids that were into the scene stuff. It was like dumb guy music.
Yeah, it was kind of like Lamb of God kind of feels like we're the metalcore version of Pantera to me. I never got it. Like anytime I ever heard it, I was like, there's no tunefulness here. There's no interesting like riffs. The tone of everything kind of sucks. Like I did not get the Lamb of God thing.
Yeah. But at the same time, there's Killswitch Engage. There's Shadows Fall. All That Remains was like a Guitar Hero band, weren't they?
Yeah. Yeah.
Weird. There's a little bit of real screamo. And,
Scrams.
Spawning the Scrams turn. Circle Takes the Square put out As the Roots Undo. That's definitely the biggest thing. There's also funny to me, I think, when you consider that like emo is becoming this like mainstream thing and the scene core thing is happening, and the bands that, or like the people from bands that inspired a lot of, that mid-2000s wave of emo are still very active. Jimmy Eat World put out Futures. There's a Get Up Kids record. Jim Ward from At the Drive-In is in Sparta. I didn't even see if there was a Mars Volta. I don't think there's a Mars Volta record in 2004.
I don't think so. I think we're about to get
Records.
the next one.
Yeah.
What was that one called? The blue one. Anyway.
So I think it's funny that there's like that wave of, like your Jimmy Eat World, At the Drive-In kind of like bands that influenced and opened that door are like old guys now. And it's like a couple years later. And the only other really big thing that I felt like, and this is outside of punk to a degree, but it's so big, and it was certainly something we were into at the time or shortly after 2004. Not quite there yet, but is the post-metal, brown pants metal, atmospheric sludge, all the big ones. ISIS, Jesu, Neurosis, Cult of Luna, The Ocean, Old Man Gloom, tons more bands that I don't even know.
Yeah.
Huge sound. Kind of surprised that sound hasn't come back.
Part of it is a lot of those bands also never went away.
Yeah.
A lot of them are still together. ISIS called it quits like really
ISIS
early.
quit. He went to basically ISIS again.
Yeah, was Sumac, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess it's like Sumac is a little tighter and the songs are a little shorter, but sonically it's very similar. Yeah, The Ocean, I think The Ocean has a record this year. Like they're still around.
Maybe.
Cult of Luna, not that long ago, had a record.
But it's older bands are still doing it. There's not as much new stuff.
Yeah, I think it's stuck around for a really long time. Like it hasn't even been. I feel like it really died down in the 2010s. So it's not. I don't think it's been long enough for a revival of that. Also, I don't know that I want a revival of that. Those songs are too long.
No, I don't necessarily. I'm just saying. I'm just surprised there's not a big wave of it yet. Maybe that'll come post Deftones' New Gaze.
Yeah. Their Snake record. Private music, I think is what they're calling it. Yeah. I wish Deftones fans would keep their music private. Honestly, Deftones fans might be worse than Tool fans at this point. Of just never shutting up about them.
Yeah.
They're obsessed with them. You can listen to other stuff, Well, I gave you the year 2004, so you had some options that you were considering, and we actually talked about quite a few of them back and forth. I don't know. I think there are good reasons to choose all of them, and then also good reasons to maybe not choose some of them. So, what did you have selected here?
Yeah, there were some pretty strong choices, and there was a ton of stuff that I just was like, I could talk about that.
Yeah.
Plenty of the records that I've already mentioned could have been a consideration, but I just wasn't feeling them at the moment. The ones that jumped out to me, though, the Ergs Dork Rock Cork Rod is definitely one that I considered. The Ergs were a really important band to both of us, I think, and I think we both intensely listened to them to the point of burning ourselves out on them. So I feel like the angle going into that episode would probably be Does this hold up? Is this still good? Is this something I can still get something out of? It's been a while since I've listened to this record. I enjoyed it the last time I listened to it. I do have a copy of it that I probably found for like $7 or something, and then like promptly listened to one time and have not touched again. Ultimately, I passed on this one because we just did a Latterman record, and it's too similar, too much of the same scene from the same time period.
Yeah, because the Latterman record's like '05. So yeah, we would be just covering a lot of the same stuff at the time.
So I didn't want to... I think there's a little... there's the Erg story in itself, and there's a little bit more to say there, but I just wanted to maybe give it a little time before revisiting that corner of punk. I did consider The Funeral of God by Zao, which is a record we definitely would have been listening to in 2004. I was talking to you, and I was like, there's like 3 or 4 Zao records that could be the one. I mean, they really have... You have Splinter Shards, you have, original lineup, Zao.
Mm-hmm. That's
you
your
have
first
Blood and Fire, which is everyone changes except for the drummer.
Mm-hmm.
You have our first record that we listened to, and I think best record, and a lot of people think it's their best record, Liberate. And Funeral of God there's such a big story with this one that I feel like there's a lot to say about Zao, and their career, their story is bigger than one episode, I think.
Yeah, there is a fascinating 3-hour-long documentary about the band that was made after The Funeral of God, but before The Fears What Keeps Us Here. And it's 3 hours, and then there's 3 hours of outtake or cut material that's fills in the story even more. And that's technically the version of Zao today has been a band longer than any all of those combined. So it's man, this band never stops having something to say about them.
Yeah. I mean, just the story of this record alone,
fascinating.
This record, the making of, or the lead up to this record, the making of it, and the tour that follows basically involves 3 different drummers. It's the original drummer, the replacement, and then the guy that replaces him before the next record, Yeah,
there's a whole story about this guy who was going to fund them to record a new record, and then that falling through, and then them being well, we're a thing now, and they're okay, let's find a label, and then then the rest of the band half the band falls out. Yeah, it's that record is a fascinating story. That band's whole career is fascinating.
Yeah. But I guess I figured, if we're going to do a Zao record, I want to do something earlier in their discography. So I ultimately passed on it for that reason. But it was pretty close to being this one.
Yeah. It has the most story out of everything we could have done.
And
well, it did.
Yeah. Yeah. The last record that I considered, I'm very glad I didn't pick, because... it was Mastodon's Leviathan. Yeah. And we are recording this the day of the news breaking of Brent Hines passing in a motorcycle accident. That would have not been a fun episode to record.
Yeah.
I didn't really consider this record that hard, though. It wasn't that close. Mostly picked it because I was looking for something, just one more option. And I decided to go off the punk charts just to see what else was out there. Because I think this time period, there is a lot of stuff that doesn't get categorized as punk, but does draw from punk. And I do think that this Mastodon record, these first 2 Mastodon records, where they're coming from in that atmospheric sludge thing, and some of their, some of the guys played in Today Is the Day, and, they have connections to punk and hardcore in their background. And I think that it does show in their music on those first couple of records. And it's certainly a very nostalgic record for me. I was really into it at this time period. My cousin and I went and saw them around the time of their third record.
I saw them too, separate.
And
Same tour, I think.
And I figured this would be an easier record to try to tackle the atmospheric sludge thing. It's definitely a shorter record and more digestible, and probably more interesting musically to talk about because it's not strictly an atmospheric sludge record. But I'm sure that Jason is very happy that we're talking about something that's actually a punk record and not a punk adjacent record, because we have been off the punk charts a little bit lately. Not off the charts. We've just been picking like the most tenuously connected stuff.
Yeah. It's I think the Men at Work episode was the final straw for Jason there. It's like, come on, do something punk. And you know what's funny? I still don't know if what we're talking about today is strictly a punk record. I don't know. There's a lot going on here. I don't know. It's closer than we've been, I guess, for the last few weeks. But to be fair, that Mustard Plug record is a ska, third wave ska record, which is ska and punk mixed together. So you can't get mad at that one. You just don't like it. But it counts. All right, so I gave you the year 2004, and you selected Audit in Progress by Hot Snakes. Stats on the band. They formed in 1999, and they were from San Diego, California. This is the band's third full-length album, and it was released October 5th, 2004 on Swami Records. And the personnel on this album is Gar Wood on bass, Mario Rubalcaba on drums, John Reese on guitar, and Rick Froberg on guitar and vocals. The album was recorded by Ben Moore, with additional recording by Jonathan Krennick and Gar Wood, as well as John Reese. So, what made you choose this Hot Snakes record?
Well, simply, it is the best band with a poop joke for a name.
It's two things, because Hot Snakes are also a type of firework. But yes, I think it's a poop joke.
If I know the Hot Snakes guys, and I think I do, doesn't that Pitchfork record have a little doodle of a guy with a turd for a head?
He does, yeah.
It's the classiest way to do a poop joke, though, I think.
It's the kind of name where you're just like, if you've never heard Hot Snakes as a euphemism for a type of poop, you would never know that it was a poop joke. It's actually a sneaky poop joke.
Yeah. It's a good one.
Yeah.
I appreciate it. So I picked this record because I love Hot Snakes. They're a great band. We've certainly talked about the Rick Froberg, John Reese family of bands quite a bit on the show, and that was one of the only hesitations for picking this record. But I was thinking, I think we can justifiably pick at least one record from each of at least the three most important bands: Rocket, Hot Snakes, and Drive Like Jehu. I think those bands need to be talked about individually. And we've certainly talked about John Reese's solo records. It comes up a lot. Mm-hmm. He's one of our favorite musicians, I think, in punk. And I also really I considered a Hot Snakes record not long after Rick's death a couple of years ago, but I didn't want to do one so close. Yeah. I wanted to give it a little more time before we did one, but I did at some point. I was just like, we need to do especially something that's Rick fronted,
Yeah, the irony's not lost on me. The fact that we're doing this Hot Snakes record the same day as the Brent Hinds death announcement.
Yeah.
When you almost selected it. When 2 years ago we almost selected a Hot Snakes record too. So yeah, it is kind of interesting that we're talking about this record on this day in particular. We're dating this episode, but it's interesting for sure.
But I picked this one Oh, well, the thing with Hot Snakes is I love all of their records, and I think that any one of them is just as good of a record to talk about Hot Snakes. But this is probably the most popular. It's not necessarily my personal favorite, and it's not the one that I have the most, like, nostalgia attached to it. Kind of my history with Hot Snakes, I got into them around 2009. I would have found out about them through Drive Like Jehu, and I want to say I probably heard Drive Like Jehu in 2008, but I think I like really listened to their two albums in the summer of 2009, and then I downloaded some Hot Snakes records pretty soon after that. So I listened to those Drive Like Jehu records and those first two Hot Snakes records a ton throughout college. And I didn't actually really listen to this Hot Snakes record until a few years after really getting into them. It took a little longer for me to get into this record. The thing with Hot Snakes, I think, is that, like, I enjoyed them on my first listen, but I was a little more enamored with Drive Like Jehu. Like, when I first really listened to Drive Like Jehu, my thought was like, wow, this is incredible. Why was I not listening to this already? And, like, a lot of my interest in Drive Like Jehu was coming from being super into Frodus and a lot of those kinds of bands, the post-hardcore bands, and super into, like, the Gravity Records stuff from the 90s and Swing Kids and those bands. So I was like, yeah, this is exactly right in there of, like, the math rocky, angular, dissonant post-hardcore stuff. And Hot Snakes had a lot tighter, focused sound that I enjoyed listening to their records when I was first getting into them, but it took a few years of just really kind of passive enjoyment for me to realize how much I really like this band specifically within their careers. Of all of the bands in that family tree, Hot Snakes is my favorite. It took a long time for me to realize that, from exposure to them and coming back to them again and again and figuring out what exactly is happening in this band and why I like this one the most.
You know, it's funny. I think Hot Snakes were, like, one of the last ones I got into. It took me a long time to really get into Hot Snakes because, like, Rocket from the Crypt was the first one I really got into. I really liked. Probably not long after hearing, I think Rocket from the Crypt might be the first one I even heard too. I downloaded, like, that album Live at Camp X-Ray off of some random blog, and I was even confused when I downloaded it if it was a live record. It's not a live record. They just named it that. But for some reason, I tried it anyway, even thinking it might be live. I just don't really love live records. I don't know what convinced me to download it, but I did. And loved that record. And then kind of didn't dig deep at all. Like, I knew of Jehu. I learned about Pitchfork a little later. And I feel like when I personally, like, I got into Rocket pretty good. I got into Drive Like Jehu well enough. I didn't love that Pitchfork record. That record wound up growing on me much later. But for some reason, I was just like, Hot Snakes? And I moved past and was just like, Night Marchers. That's what I'm into. Which, now that I think about it, it's like, I think it's the John Reese versus Rick Froberg thing. And I think I always liked John's fronted bands more. Just because I think I just liked John's voice more than Rick's voice. So I think that was the thing that held me back. And it really wasn't until a lot later where I was like, I need to listen to these Hot Snakes records. And I finally got into them. It took me a long time. And I don't know why. I think I just didn't give them an earnest effort, really. I think it was just like, oh, I like John's voice better than Rick's. Oh, well. So that was kind of like it as far as deciding to listen to them. And then later, once I realized, I was like, oh, John's right there. He's right there. Like, John is such a big part of this record, too, that it's like, yeah, listen to it, dummy. Like, that's kind of was my takeaway. And now I'm like, I think Rocket's still my favorite, but Hot Snakes is right there next to him. You know, like, at this point, they're the number two for me.
When they're not together in a band, I prefer John's stuff now. Obits, I like, but don't love. I've never really been able to fully get into them. I appreciate them more now than I did when I first was listening to them, but John definitely kind of, like, cuts to the quick a little more on his own material, And it makes sense when you consider what they do together and where you can see where Rick's ideas are coming from and you can see where John's ideas are coming from. Like they're very, their bands are, it's funny, like pulled in kind of two different directions. And like you have John's like rock and roll garaginess and you have Rick's esoteric artiness. And you can just see a divide right down the middle, and they're doing both at the same time when they're together.
I think it says a lot of John's respect for Rick for the fact that every time they're in a band together, Rick is the singer.
Yeah.
Not John. And I think John is the more accessible singer. I think he's the one that could like give you the wider chance of success. And it's proven because Rocket from the Crypt was bigger than anything else bigger than anything Rick did, you know, or they did together. I do think that Hot Snakes became the critical darling band, them and Drive Like Jehu. Jehu has that, like, legacy. They're just like, this is the thing. I mean, even though Pitchfork was before Drive Like Jehu, Jehu's where people start, I think, with their collaboration the most. But I think since then, with the 4 Hot Snakes records, they've become the critical darling band that they were all in together. They were both in together. More critically praised than Rocket. Like, Rocket got the money, Hot Snakes got the cred, I guess. So, before we dive into the record, we do this Also Ran section where we talk about, like, the albums that came out the same year that are kind of in the same scene, and I don't know what this scene is. The scene is probably San Diego, for being honest, but...
Not really, actually. So, I think there's that. There is a Pinback record that year. There's not much else that really stands out from San Diego at this time period. There's definitely the garage punk thing going on. I think kind of just always existing since the Cramps started it. And I mean, honestly, I think you could even take it back to proto-punk. And a lot of it is just people continuing to do that. But
they're just doing the Sonics over and over again.
Yeah. And which I understand the appeal of, even if I don't entirely get into it. So like the contemporaries, if you're strictly categorizing Hot Snakes as like a garage punk band, which I don't really, but it is probably the closest niche that is active at the time. You've got a Raining Sound record, you've got a Black Lips record, you've got a Guitar Wolf record. I thought this was funny. There's a Knights of the New Crusade record, which, Justin, you should remember as being the band that put ads in HM Magazine.
Yeah, I remember it, and I was always confused by this because I was like, is this a real Christian band? I don't think they were. I think it was a joke.
And they're not. It was a joke band. It was entirely... They were from the Bay Area. It's members of the Mummies and probably some other bands. Full-on a joke band. Completely satirical. But the name of the record, it was their first one. My God is Alive, Sorry About Yours, Songs in Praise of Our Lord God and in the Condemnation of Sin. And they wear, like, bucket helmet crusader costumes.
And it was on alternative tentacles, too. I remember at the time, we saw those ads, and I was like, wait, I think it even said alternative tentacles. And I wonder how many people put 2 and 2 together that this is not a real Christian band. Doug Van Pelt certainly didn't. He's the guy who ran HM Magazine, but Heaven's Metal Magazine. And I wonder how many readers of that magazine caught it. Because I think we were like, what is this? We were confused by what it was at the time. Because there was just something odd about it that we were just like, I don't think this is really Christian. What is this? I never listened to it to find out. But
And there's a Flesh Eaters record. And there's two other records that I felt like I could put in a similar category to Hot Snakes. Not entirely because of their sound, but maybe what kind of band they are. And it's kind of a smart guy punk. There's a little bit of this going on at the time. Kind of manifests itself more in your dance punk and your post-punk revival stuff. Very much New York City kind of Brooklyn vegan hipster smart guys who are like vaguely interested in punk music. But I think two strong examples of an indie rock influenced punk. There's a Retasonic record, which Retasonic is post Swizz, post Blue Tip
Yeah, it's Jason Farrell.
Jason Farrell band. I feel like there's something about the way that Jason Farrell writes that feels very akin to what Hot Snakes does.
Yeah, I hear that. I hear what you're talking about. Yeah. Because especially on that Retasonic too, like more so than Blue Tip, but Blue Tip even then, they do have something there that's kind of close.
There's just like there's like a cynicism and a snark, but also like muscular riffs.
Yeah, and I'm wondering if it's a similar influence and that's how they got there. But yeah, we'll talk about influences later.
And there's a Ted Leo record. Shake the Sheets is a pretty important Ted Leo record. And I think there's something to the political consciousness and artiness of Ted Leo that I think is kind of similar to more of Rick's contributions to Hot Snakes. I feel like there's a little bit of a Ted Leo fan is possibly a Hot Snakes fan at this time.
Yeah, I can see that. Also worth noting, Swami Records the same year, 2004. Not a super busy year. The first one there, you added this, and I'm really glad you did, because it actually kind of annoyed me. I went to the Swami Discogs page, and for some reason, this record was not on that on the discography page, and it annoyed me, because if you go to the actual albums, the artist page and the album page, they link it to the label, so there's something wrong there. It didn't, like, I don't know, maybe it's missing the metadata to put it on the discography page. It wasn't there for some reason. And I went back and double checked it to make sure I just didn't miss it. No, not there. Don't know why it did that. But The Sultan's Shipwrecked, which is John Reese's other band that he was doing at the same time as Hot Snakes. Also the same time as Rocket from the Crypt. There's more story there. We'll get into that later. But also Swami put out Demolition Doll Rods, the albums On, and the album There Is a Difference. They put 2 albums out that year. They're a Detroit band, all women. There is a 4-band 7-inch tour compilation that features the Beehive and the Barracuda, the Husbands and the Sultans, and Dan Sartain. I think those are all exclusive songs. And there are some reissues on the label as well. The band Crime and their album San Francisco Still Doomed, which is like a 70s like San Francisco punk band that one Pitchfork review I read said that he was borrowing very much. John Reese was borrowing from this record specifically for this album. I didn't listen to it to hear what they were talking about, and they reissued Rocket from the Crypt circa now on Swami. So not a huge year for Swami, but some notable things, you know. Let's do the story. Let's dive into this. So, John Reese and Rick Froberg began collaborating with each other in San Diego in the band Pitchfork from 1986 to 1990. After that band wound up calling it quits, they went on to form the band Drive Like Jehu, which was a bit of a breakout for both of them. They attracted major label attention and wound up signing with Interscope Records. Weird as hell, the Interscope was like this angular, distorted, like very aggressive, but not catchy anyway band. Yeah, we're gonna sign you to Interscope.
Yeah, we want the droning, feedback squealing,
yeah, strange
art rock band. Yeah,
and I think the labels wanted that band too. Like they wanted Drive Like Jehu, and part of the deal was you're taking Rocket from the Crypt too. It's just very funny that they wanted Jehu first.
They got, I think that was the story.
Yeah,
because we looked into this before.
Yeah,
and it was almost like they were independent of each other, though.
Yeah, so concurrently, John starts Rocket from the Crypt at the same time as Drive Like Jehu, which Rocket from the Crypt wind up becoming the bigger band, and Rocket becoming successful wound up killing Jehu, is really what happened. Basically, John's too busy touring with Rocket from the Crypt around the world that they just can't do Drive Like Jehu anymore. So they're done in 95 with Jehu. Rick winds up moving to New York and began working as a visual artist and doing some design work. So then in 1999, Hot Snakes was formed as a side project for John Reese while Rocket from the Crypt were on a break. So they had lost their label, and their drummer, Adam Willard, had left Rocket from the Crypt. They were between labels. They're trying to find a new home. So in the meantime, John's like, let me start this thing up. So he starts his own record label, Swami Records, during this time. And he starts 2 bands. He starts Hot Snakes and Sultans. And John had recorded a bunch of songs with Jason Korkunis on drums. And the first early Hot Snake stuff was just Jason and John. And then they reached out to Rick because he wanted Rick to contribute vocals to it. And then most of that stuff wound up becoming their first record, Automatic Midnight, in 2000. So they're a long-distance band at this point. John is still based out of San Diego. Rick is living in New York. Jason is living in Philadelphia at the time. So anytime that this band was around each other, it resulted in very intense, short bursts of work, basically consisting of, all right, we're together, we're touring as much as we possibly can, and we're recording as much as we can. So they do that record, and eventually John's like, all right, Rocket from the Crypt's got a label now, we got to go back, I got to go back and work with that band. So Hot Snakes goes on pause. And with this band, the idea was to play a little bit more of a primitive style of music, which is how they described it, especially compared to like Pitchfork and Jehu and Rocket from the Crypt. They were heavily inspired by the Wipers, Suicide, and the Michael Yonkers Band. I know nothing about the Michael Yonkers Band. Do you know anything about them?
Not at all.
It feels like a joke to me. We're heavily influenced by the Dave Clark 5. Like that kind of joke.
He was inspired by the Surfin' Bird by the Trashmen. He was in a band called the Mumbles, and he was drafted and went to Vietnam, or was supposed to go to Vietnam, but was discharged, couldn't serve. So I think he's just a garage rock guy, just an old garage rock guy.
Which makes sense.
The OCs references him as an influence.
Okay. I could see that. Okay.
Black Lips also references him as an influence. So it's just one of those garage rock, like, deep cut guys. The thing about John Reese, he goes deep.
Yeah. He loves old shit. Really, though, when I saw that Wipers comparison, I was like, oh, that's what they're doing. It never clicked with me. They're doing Wipers. I've never clicked.
It's so obvious. It's so hilarious that you didn't. Like, when I first heard Wipers, I think that was one of the things I was like, oh, this is Hot Snakes. This is where that came from. Like, this is where Rocket from the Crypt came from.
I don't know why it took me. I mean, it took me a long time to get into the Wipers, too, so maybe that's part of it. I never made that connection, but yeah, I always missed that. So prior to Hot Snakes, Garwood, he plays in multiple bands. He played in Tanner, Fishwife, and he's also in the Beehive of the Barracuda at the time. He enters the Froberg-Reese orbit by producing Rocket from the Crypt's first album, Paint as a Fragrance. Weird that he recorded that. Gar would join Hot Snakes to be their touring bassist and began playing on their next record, Suicide Invoice. So following the second record, Jason Korkunis, I need to look up how to pronounce that guy's last name. I think Korkunis is how you would say it, but
I think that's right.
Yeah.
He leaves. I've heard it said.
He leaves Hot Snakes and he goes on to play in a band called Burning Brides because they're like a full-time band, and Hot Snakes was a side project. So they bring in Mario Rubalcaba, who is a former pro skateboarder turned into an in-demand drummer. He started off playing in bands 411, Metro Shifter, Click Attack Ikatawi, and Thingy. And this is Mario's very first record with Hot Snakes. So right before this record comes out, they put out an EP called EP in Progress, which features 3 tracks from the record, Brain Rot, Retrofit, and Audit in Progress. I'm assuming that's just a little thing to get out there for fans to listen to. And also something called a super not secret bonus track. So they recorded this record at Big Fish Recording in Encinitas, California, which is apparently not far from San Diego. And this is the same studio that Drive Like Jehu and Rocket from the Crypt have recorded at. Also, this studio has a legacy. This is the same studio that Jimmy Eat World recorded Static Prevails, where Blink-182 recorded Dude Ranch and Enema of the State, where Mineral recorded In Serenading, and then bands like Knapsack, Buck-O-Nine, Finch, Dogwood, Boys Life, Boilermaker, No Knife, the whole, like the Pinback Family Tree bands, Heavy Vegetable, Thingy, and 3 Mile Pilot. And there was some additional recording done at Drag Race's studio, which is John Reese's own studio that burned down in 2003. They recorded with Ben Moore, who worked on the band's first 2 records, and then Jonathan Krennic, who did the additional recording. He is most notable for working with Frodis on numerous records, Engine Down and Hot Cross. And the album cover is done by Rick Froberg, and it's probably one of my favorite covers that they did with Hot Snakes. And yeah, after the record comes out, they tour extensively in the US, Europe, and Australia. And the album won the Best Punk Album in the San Diego Music Awards that year. So. All right, so before you chose this record for us to talk about, you did mention to me that this is not your favorite Hot Snakes record. So, 2 questions. What is your favorite Hot Snakes record? And 2, what'd you think of this one after revisiting it?
So, Audit in Progress has always been the record that I have the least attachment to. I say it's not my favorite. I think all of the Hot Snakes records are about equal quality. And with maybe the slight exception being to Automatic Midnight, but I really have a special place for that record because it probably was the first record I heard by them. The 2 that I am most familiar with are Automatic Midnight and Suicide Invoice. They're the ones that I go back the furthest with. They're the first 2 records. My favorite is Suicide Invoice, only because I guess it's just the one that I realized how much I liked them with, kind of prior to really hearing Audit in Progress. And I even have kind of a little more attachment to Jericho Sirens because that's the only Hot Snakes record to ever come out in the time that I was a fan of them. So
when you wait for it.
I had anticipation once I knew that record was coming out, and it rips. Like, it's an incredible record. And I saw them on tour at that time. Really very fortunate to say that I got to see Hot Snakes twice before Rick died. So Jericho Sirens is also kind of really important to me in that way. But, like, I like Audit in Progress, and I always have. And I've expected myself to like it before I listened to it for the first time. I think it maybe just didn't hit me quite the same way the first couple of times that I listened to it that their other records have. But it also has quite a few of their best songs. So I see why it's probably the most popular. I see why it's probably the consensus pick for best record. I wouldn't be surprised that if you polled Hot Snakes fans, if you didn't have a clear winner. Like, if you voted for best Hot Snakes records like it was the President of the United States, I don't think you'd have a majority winner. I think if you do a ranked voting of Hot Snakes records, Audit in Progress comes out on top. I think it's probably the one that has the most high rankings. It's complete conjecture. Maybe I'm an idiot. Maybe everybody's like, no, it's Audit in Progress. That's the one.
It's not Audit in Progress. I'll get into that, I guess, a little bit. But I'll do it now. So every review I read from the time period, at the time it came out, placed this one third.
Wow.
Yeah. Every review. And every review complained about Mario's drumming.
So, okay. That makes sense.
Everyone was like, he doesn't play as hard as Jason. He's too clean and too technical. He doesn't hit as hard as Jason does. I don't think I paid that much attention to the drumming on any Hot Snakes record. Like, I don't really know why they think he's like, this drumming ruins the record. It's kind of like the implication. Like, it's a lot of... I was shocked at the amount of negative reviews. It was like a lot of like 3-star reviews, 3 to 4. They all seem to think the first 2 are like miles ahead of this one. I don't know why. Thinking that the drumming on this record is bad is absurd. That's stupid. That is a dumb statement. It's phenomenal drumming. Listen to what he's doing. He's a great drummer. He just drums different from Jason. That's all it is.
Yeah.
You know,
there's
your
a
Hot
difference.
Snakes, you know your Hot Snakes better than me. Like, what do you think? What is the difference? That Jason just hits harder? Is it the only difference?
I think Jason is probably a little more straightforward of a drummer.
Yeah, all the reviews were like, it's really thin drumming. It's not this thunderous drumming that we had on the first 2 records. I came to all the Hot Snakes records with the exception of the newest one, like all 3 of the first records are at the same time. To me, they don't sound different enough to really. I'm in the case of like I can't choose between the first 3 because they're all good, equally good to me. And I'm with you. Jericho Sirens is the one that I am mostly sentimental towards because it is the one that came out after I became a fan, and the record they toured on when I saw them live. So, but even then, that's like their most melodic record too. So yeah, I don't know. The reviews were strange. I wonder if it's a case of I don't know what to write about. The only thing different from this record is it's a different drummer. So that's the thing I'm going to hyper fixate on when I'm writing this review. I think it is a case of I don't know how to write a review about this without talking about anything but
the drums are just. I don't even think their drumming style is that wildly different, though I would say Mario probably leans towards like more fills and a little more groove. But Jason even still does some pretty groovy stuff. Like I think it's a production how the drums are recorded. The drums are drier or tighter on Audit in Progress, but that's not from Mario's playing. That's from how much room mic is in the mix.
Well, it's funny. It's the same studio and the same engineer who did all 3 of these records too. So
Yeah.
like I don't even know why it even would sound that different.
I mean, there's definitely a difference. It is a crisper. It is a tighter. It's definitely a more focused drum sound. The snare doesn't have as much of that explosive, like, big room sound. But they just didn't want as much room sound. Like, that was just a mix decision.
Yeah.
You know, like, it was just like, yeah, we want a tighter, cleaner focus on everything. Like, I don't even think that the drumming is even the most significant difference. Like, it's a noticeable difference, but there's just as much of a noticeable difference in what kind of songs they're writing and what they're doing with the guitars. Like, and I think that how they produce the drums are in line with what they're doing with the guitars on this record, because the guitars are a little tighter and a little cleaner too. So I think overall the record is just not as aggressive and noisy as the first 2, and it seems kind of like a case of misplaced anger of being like, well, it's got to be the new guy's fault. I can't imagine anybody really complaining about Mario's drumming, because like Mario's drumming in Ikatawi is like the standout feature of that band.
Like, and even in like the newer bands he's in, like Negative Blast, like he is hitting hard on that record. You know, like I think he can hit hard. I don't think it's a problem with his drumming. Maybe it's what they told him to, you know, it's like, let's do this, you know? And maybe he's just like, I don't want to do what Jason did. I want to do what I do, which is different. And Mario's probably more technical, right? You think he's probably a more technical drummer? I kind of get that impression from what I've heard, but
not drastically.
Right. They're both phenomenal drummers. Like, if you had to choose a drummer, I think they would be extremely difficult. If they're standing right in front of you and you're like, we both want to play drums in your band, you have to be like, fuck, who
flip a coin?
Who do I pick? Yeah. Like, they're both, you want both.
Yeah.
Which, as the band goes on, kind of becomes both. But,
yeah.
to me, okay, what are some standout tracks on here for you? Because for me personally, I'll name a couple of my favorites on here. All of them? But no, for me personally, I love Braintrust. The opening track, I love it because it does my favorite thing that they do, which is here comes the train. The train's coming. The way that they play guitar on some songs, there's a couple songs they do this. It's that Wipers guitar. It's that very rockabilly, I guess you could say that's part of that too. It's just like this nonstop, just like, here we go. You're tied to the tracks, and the Hot Snakes train is coming to run you over. Like it. They do it on a few songs. They do it on Braintrust. They do it on, what's a good one they do it on? Audit in Progress. That's a little bit more melodic of a song. What am I thinking of? Reflex. That's another one that does that a lot too. They do it on every record, every Hot Snakes record. I just love that sound. That's my favorite thing they do. But I love Highlights. I love Retrofit. Really, the first 3 tracks are like hugely stand out to me. And then like the title track, Audit in Progress, is brilliant. And then a Reflex. Those are like my favorite songs on the record.
Yeah, I love that runaway feeling. Like, Hot Snakes very much, I think, is a perfection of that, which they've kind of always been doing. And I think they really started to get it right in Drive Like Jehu, but they tended to just blow everything out so much more with Jehu and just draw everything out. And that works too in its own way. Like, I love Jehu. I love listening to those records and getting absorbed into them. Like, they're such like hypnotic records. But Hot Snakes takes that and that drive, that like a runaway train feeling, and condenses it into these 2-minute songs, 3-minute songs, and adds more speed to it. And they're just faster, and they're tighter, and they're so precise. And I think where this record sort of excels over maybe the first 2 Hot Snakes records is in how tight it is. I do like the messiness and the chaos of everything that they do, and there is an element of that here, but it is cool to get this kind of like really clean cut version of it too. And I think that gives this record some of its own distinct character. There's so many great songs on this record. I think my favorite songs though are Hatchet Job and This Mystic Decade.
Interesting. Are they deep cuts? I don't know if there are. Like, I think there's no like super singles really in most of their stuff.
And Plenty for All. Plenty for All. Southern California. There's Room for Us All.
Yeah.
I love that song.
That song is great because it's like the most different song. Well, that and Lovebirds are like the 2 most different songs on the record. Lovebirds might be my least favorite, but only because it's just like slower and it's like the organ song. But Plenty for All has this weird, like really bright, like melodic guitar part that we haven't heard them do on the record at all. It just appears in that song.
Yeah. That guitar line on the beginning of Plenty for All, throughout Plenty for All, is just, it's so pretty. And it's such an incredible guitar tone. Like, it is truly, that's one of those, like, how did you guys find that guitar sound and capture it so perfectly? Because it's liquid gold. I mean, it's...
Is it, whose guitar is that a Rick thing? I never listened to the Obits really to know, because I've never really been able to figure out who's doing what in the guitars in Hot Snakes.
They both do that lick on that song. I'm pretty sure, based on what I know John does in his own bands on guitar, that John is the left channel and Rick is the right channel.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure they have the guitar split and who's doing what, because you hear that left channel is always going on this record.
Yeah.
Which that makes sense because John's not singing.
Yeah.
And John is, and it's got all of those, like, those chuggy John Reese riffs. Those are dominant on the left channel throughout the whole thing. And you get a lot more of the, like, sketchy, kind of off-kilter stuff. The angular, weirder, artier stuff on the right channel happens a lot. But Rick gets that lead. It's the gold foil pickups, I'm pretty sure, is, like, the key to that tone. And gold foil pickups is a whole thing in the guitar world of people nobody has ever made a case for gold foil pickups. The cheap little, they had rubber magnets. It was magnetized rubber studs that were stuck in these little cheap little guitar pickups that were in like Harmony and K, Taisco, all these Japanese guitar brands that were made in the 60s. Absolute garbage guitars, like almost unplayable. Rick plays a Harmony Bobcat, and he's like, I can make this guitar do what I need it to do, but it's not a good guitar. Like, it takes so much work to play it, and most of these guitars are like that. Just high action, finicky, cheap electronics. But they had these pickups that do this specific thing. John took one and put it in his Les Paul, and he's gone way down the rabbit hole of guitar pickups, of swapping out guitar pickups and trying to find this like special sound. But the gold foil pickups are, I think, key to that.
You know, it's
this
so
three-dimensionality that is so hard to find in a guitar pickup.
It's so funny to look at like the history of rock music and look at the like genius level musicians who take these like piece of shit cheap ass guitars and create an entire like tone and sound and just get magic out of them. Like they do this, like Leatherface does it because they use those like British guitars that were like dirt cheap because it was like the only guitar made in England at the time. And Leatherface has such a unique tone compared to everyone else. And then like even Queens of the Stone Age, like Josh Homme like loved this really like shitty cheap guitar brand that like now are extremely rare because like all the Queens of the Stone Age like guitar heads like wound up like buying them all. And so they're like very rare now, but they're not good guitars. They just like got magic out of them. Even
Josh
Kurt
Homme's
Cobain
done that. Josh Homme's done that like 3 times. Like people are like, "Oh, I gotta have an Ampeg VT40," and it's like these things were like $300 forever because they're heavy boat anchors that are unforgiving if you're a sloppy guitar player. And he did it with the little PV Bandit amps because there's just like this real shitty distortion that they had that he used on like a specific Queens of the Stone Age record, Songs of the Deaf. I think he used it a lot on. And now it's like it's a practice amp. It is a cheap 15-watt practice amp that nobody ever looked at twice until he used it on one record and got a really cool sound out of it. Now they're like 4 times the price they should be.
Yeah. Or like even like Converge using like First Act guitars, you know, and like the guitar you can buy at Walmart, you know. And
I mean those were custom.
Yeah, they were built for them.
Custom shop guitars. First Act can make really good guitars. They just mostly don't.
Yeah. This is funny. Brilliant musician. Well, that just also shows you like the power and just like how good these musicians are. They can get such a good sound out of crappy gear. Because then it's like it's not the gear, guys. Like that's really the justification. It's like, well, you could just get real good.
It is, yeah.
You can make this gear sound good.
I mean, it's a thing where it's like, Ian MacKaye is like told that story of like the Bad Brains guys. Like he's like, oh, it's just this shitty amp, like this crappy guitar, and it's probably what Daryl, like takes it and just like rips a solo on it. He's like, no, it's not the guitar, it's the player. I mean, John is such a fascinating gear guy. Rick's a little more set in stone. He like got the Harmony. I don't think he's even super picky about amps. John is like a freak about guitars and amps and has just like dug deep and tried everything and like has to use specific, like if he's doing Jehu, he has to use like a guitar with EMG active humbuckers. It's got to be EMGs. He had the chassis of his Marshall JCM 800 flipped so that he can get up to the transformers that are normally on the backside of the amp, so that he can put the EMGs up to the transformer to make the bird noises. It's just like that kind of like control over feedback that he can have. He's done like, I mean, his Les Paul is hilarious when you see the the work that he's done on it, which it got stolen.
Yeah, I was going to say, there's a reason why he wanted that guitar back so bad.
Yeah, because he put a shitload of work into it. It's weight relieved. Like, he just took out huge chunks out of it with a router. He's got the pickups wired to stereo output. He runs them into 2 channels separately on the amp. And he's done all kinds of crazy stuff with his guitars. Tried every pickup known to man to find the sound that he wants.
It works, like... But the thing is, like, even if he just had, like, a standard-ass guitar, I think he would still play that thing incredibly.
Right. Yeah. He could take his Les Paul with the standard humbuckers that are in it and make it sound good. Like, he really didn't have to do all that work, but it's the kind of thing where you're, like, it's inspiring, and especially it was really inspiring to me, like as I was digging into that stuff and, like, really trying to push myself to play guitar better and figure out, like, what are my strengths and what are the things that I want to do. John Reese is a huge influence, like, in guitar playing and in gear choices. And it was just, like, it prompted a lot of, like, what can I do with shitty gear? Like, what is the unattractive quality of a piece of gear that I can use effectively? Or what can a cheap guitar do if you put different pickups in it? And, like, I haven't directly copied him in terms of, like, oh, I'm going to put that kind of pickup in that kind of guitar, but I've had the same mentality of, like, oh, okay, let me take a $300 Epiphone and put Firebird pickups in it because I wonder what that sounds like. And, like, oh, it's actually really cool. I like this sound. This is really inspiring to me. So it's that, I find that kind of thinking of, like, learning from your guitar heroes, especially the people that are, like, real gearheads, like, if you follow their thought process and don't just buy the gear that they use, but think about what they're choosing and why they're choosing it and how it works for them, and do that for your own music, you get so much more enjoyment out of the gear that you're using. And, like, I feel like I'm at a point now where I'm like, I've tried almost everything I want to try. I don't need to buy any more guitar pedals. I want more guitars because I think they're cool, but it's like, that's just like collecting almost.
Yeah.
It's like, but I know what I want to hear, and I now have all the tools to do that with, for the most part, as far as electric guitar goes. And a lot of that is heavily inspired by John Reese.
Well, let's do the aftermath here. Let's wrap this up. So, upon returning home from their tour, John Reese announced that the band is breaking up. And then a few months later, Rocker from the Crypt is also breaking up. They would release a live album recorded in Australia in 2005 called Thunder Down Under in 2006. They recorded it with, like, the Triple J, whatever they call that in Australia, the big radio company down there. So simultaneously as Hot Snakes, John Reese had started playing in the Sultans, and then he later went on to form the Night Marchers, and then Plosives, which was him and Rob Crow of Pinback. He's also now in Me First and the Gimme Gimmes. He's just part of their band now. I don't know if it's just a touring thing or what, or just a job. I guess now it's Spike in the Gimme Gimmes. And then he started releasing some solo records. He now has 3 solo albums, but if you look at the liner notes, it's all people he's played with in every band he's ever been in. So Rick goes on, he forms the Obits in 2006, and they do a couple albums. Gar Wood goes on to join the Night Marchers with John Reese, and he plays on John's solo record, Ride the Wild Night. Mario Rubalcaba would begin playing in Earthless in 2005, and then he would later go on to play in Off, which was the Black Flag cover band made up of all former members of Black Flag, and it was the band that they started after. I think they got a cease and desist, from Greg Ginn. And so they're just like, okay, Keith was just like, we'll just do a band called Off and play like old Black Flag. And he's in that version of the band. And then he also plays in the band Negative Blast, which is the Ludax and Hour of the Wolf kind of like super group thing. And then July 29th, 2010, the Night Marchers and the Obits played a show together. And at the end of this show, the original lineup of Hot Snakes played 3 songs together, because between both bands, they had everyone there. And then the next year, they would reunite Hot Snakes, and when they played live, they would swap between Jason Corconis and Mario Rubalcaba. So basically, it's probably just whoever was available that for whatever run they needed to do. And then they would release their album Jericho Siren in 2018 on Sub Pop Records. And then in June 2023, Rick Froberg announced that a new Hot Snakes album was very nearly done. And then sadly, 2 weeks later, he would pass away. And we've yet to hear what that record is. John Reese released a record this year, in 2025, that he says a lot of those songs were written for Hot Snakes. But I still don't know if this is what they were talking about.
Yeah, him saying it's almost done.
That implies recording.
It's
right.
Was it almost done being written?
Or is it almost done being recorded? I mean, it's 2023 from 2018. That's a good little run. So there's enough time there to get a record done. I don't know. You know, we read that one article at the beginning of the year. It was like a Stereo Gum, like anticipated albums. And they mentioned like a new Hot Snake, the final Hot Snakes record. And we were confused at the time. I guess they were basing it off that then. That little piece of information.
Yeah. Maybe it's just speculation, but...
I mean, if there is one, like if they were almost done... I wonder if it's a case, too, of like, they just let it sit for a while and they just haven't really touched it since he died. And they don't know how to finish it without him. Or, for all we know, I think that John Reese record was a surprise drop. I don't know that it was... No, we knew it was coming. We knew that one was coming. But one of his records was a surprise drop. I remember that. But maybe they surprise drop something. We'll see what happens. I don't know. I would love to know if it meant recorded or written. Because there's a difference, you know. Because if it's written, then yeah, maybe that John Reese record is what we're getting. You know, that's the closest we'll get to that album. Because it does kind of sound like a Hot Snakes record. It's the most Hot Snakes sounding solo record he's done.
I hope there's more recordings of Rick. I would really like to hear the last things that they were working on. I hope there's something that is able to be released from that.
Even just as like a tribute to him, you know?
Yeah.
Because all of those people loved him. You know, everybody he ever played with, they loved him. Like, I never heard anything bad about him, ever. And maybe
a brilliant artist. That art book, it comes out next year, I think January. Yeah. And I really I should order a copy of that.
Yeah.
I love his design. I love his artwork. Mm-hmm. I've always loved the look of Hot Snake stuff. It's, I think, the best example of his art, too.
Yeah, it's my favorite stuff. All the Hot Snake stuff. He's done so much, too. There's tons of artwork out there. Yeah, I really do want to see that book. I probably won't buy a hardcover, but if they do a paperback edition, I might grab that one.
Yeah, probably not. I can't imagine they'll do more than one pressing.
Yeah, it's an art book. Those tend to just be like a one and done, but yeah.
But I guess before we completely wrap, I just want to also talk about Rick in particular in this record. And like, Rick is such an interesting lyric writer because I don't entirely know what all of his songs are about, but he's got lines that I just think are so fascinating and so inspiring. Like, I love Audit Me, I don't give a shit. I paid nothing for nothing. I don't, Hatchet Job is one of my favorites, and a lot of it's driven by the lyrics. You know you don't have forever. Hatchet job or hatchet fight. You know I don't know whether it's a job or what I like. Like, his creative control, I would cut off my dick for creative control. There's stuff on, like, Suicide Invoice, I think has got some incredible lyrics as well, like... Paid in Cigarettes, I think, is such a fascinating... Pay the president in cigarettes. What does that mean? Just like the president is like on a prison yard getting paid in cigarettes? Like, I don't know. Just funny, weird little things that he wrote for song lyrics that like I said, I can't fully comprehend them, but they're so... interesting and makes you want to write
nonsense,
weird shit like that.
Yeah, I do love the idea of writing like that. Just being like, yeah, I just had like funny lines that I thought they're for me. They entertain me. I don't know what they mean either. They just sound funny because lyrics don't have to mean shit. John wrote about his hot dog order, like on one of his solo records. You know, they don't have to all be. That kind of fits in your lyrics can be kayfabe or lyrics don't have to mean shit.
Yeah. I mean, Mystic Decade probably has some significance. I'm sure he's probably singing about something that maybe means something to him, but like he also came up with the line, drive up in a hearse, drive off in reverse.
And he probably only wrote that because it rhymed. He's like, I like how that sounds. I will use it. Well,
it sounds like a breakup song. I don't know, but I don't know what else it's about.
Did we win?
Yeah.
What are you rating it?
4.5, 5 star. It's somewhere in between.
A 4.75 then?
Yeah.
That's what's been in the middle. Yeah, I don't know if I'm a 5 star. I mean, maybe I'm a 5 star. I don't know. If I'm on a curve, I mean, if I'm comparing it to all the Hot Snakes records, I give Jericho Sirens a 5. So do I give this a 5? Yeah. Maybe that's
a problem I have with like rating the Hot Snakes records, because like if I'm ranking it against all recorded music, they're probably all 5-star records. Like, I want to hear all of them more than a lot of things.
Yeah.
If I'm rating them within their own discography, I have favorites.
Yeah. Because you very rarely have equally like every record an artist puts out. Like, it's very rare to run into that. So you have favorites. But you might still be like, the worst Hot Snakes records is still a 5-star record compared to everyone else. I'd agree with that too. So yeah, it's rating's hard. Rating is hard. Also, ultimately doesn't matter because you could just change your mind from minute to minute how you feel about it. So
it doesn't matter. It's a game.
Yeah, it really doesn't matter. It's so subjective too. It's 5-star for me is not always 5-star for you.
5-star for me isn't always that I want to hear this record.
It's true.
Anytime, I have 5-star records that are very selective about when I want to listen to them.
It's funny. Like, I can rank things. And I can give something 5 stars, but still rank a 4-star higher than that. Because maybe I like the flaws more, Like, you recognize that technically this is not as good as this thing, but I just likes it, is all. I think they're neat, So yeah, rating is arbitrary, and we don't really have to do it, and it's all subjective, and it's, you change your mind on your mood, so fuck it. I'll give it 5 stars right now. Why not? I'm in a good mood. I love Rick Froberg. I love Hot Snakes. John Reese. The rest of the guys, love them. So it's getting 5 stars just for the hell of it. All right, that'll do it for us. Thank you all so much for listening. You can follow us on all forms of social media at Punk Lotto Pod. Where can we follow you, Dylan?
You can follow me at Major Awards Band and Husker Dylan, pretty much everywhere.
And we have a voicemail line, 202-688, if you want to get... Excuse me. We have a voicemail line, 202-688-PUNK, if you want to send us a voicemail and play it on the show, or send us a voice note at punklautopod@gmail.com. And you can get at us everywhere online. We're easy to get a hold of, so join the Discord. It's fun. That'll do it. So thank you so much, and we will talk to you next time.
To order Punk, call the number on your screen. Rush delivery is available. Remember, this special offer is not sold in stores.